You know how ultra-processed food has been engineered to be really addictive because of the salty, sweet, and fat content? Well, maybe the same thing is happening with cannabis. I'm Catherine Goldberg. I've been talking a lot about ultra-processed cannabis and how absolutely terrible I think this is for the industry and for humanity, not to be too dramatic. But I just had one more thought about this topic that I wanted to share because I thought it was interesting. And if you're new here, I am the biggest cannabis advocate out there. I love daily cannabis. I believe daily cannabis is life-saving for many, many people, but not daily distillate, not daily infused pre-rolls with THCA diamonds. Um, we have the what's being sold at the dispensaries is not good quality because big business and cannabis are sort of an oxymoron. So this is what I was thinking today, and I wanted to share with you guys to see if you think it resonates at all. And I apologize if I have to like think through it because I haven't slept on these ideas yet, so they're still marinating. But with this whole business of food being engineered to be like very, I don't want to use the word addictive, but like almost like you can't resist it. Yet it's not satisfying at all. You don't feel full or nourished. You just want more, right? And this is done by way of the ratios of like salt and fat and sugar. With cannabis, we're not looking at salt and fat and sugar, but what I am thinking of is distillate, right? Because when you strip the cannabis plant of everything besides pure THC, then you're left with something that affects the body much differently than how a whole flower would affect your body. So the same way that I think like ultra processed food kind of hijacks our dopamine receptors so that they become like overworked and then you need more to get the same feeling. I think ultra processed cannabis, high THC, is taxing our CB1 receptor to the point where it it isn't satisfying. You need more to get any sort of feeling. And the part about it being addictive, we've always heard forever, like, oh, cannabis isn't addictive. And caveat, if you have an addictive personality, anything can be addictive. So let's just get that straight. But it wasn't really like the plant that was an issue, except now we're seeing all these like cannabis use disorder cases, like all of these cannabis hyperemesis syndrome disorders. And it makes me think that it's the process, not the plant, right? Some of the best weed I've ever consumed in my life was 9% THC and 9% THCV. And I think I had like 4% terps. So just an absolute delight. Um, and the reason I'm adamant, passionate about this topic is because I believe daily cannabis use can liberate us in a way that a lot of other things can't, right? Like it quiets the inner voice. It allows us to be more present. We seem to be more compassionate. We rush less. All of like these really fabulous things that humanity desperately needs, we're not getting with this ultra processed crap. Which again, if you're growing your own, if you're following my grow journey, this is the solution. And of course, there are some good brands out there. There's some craft brands. You want to look for living soil. You want to look for no-till. You want to look for non-remediated, um, things like that. The thing is, it's like the craft farmers that are growing the plant outside are just getting shut out of business. Um, and the only reason distillate exists in the first place is because they have so much crappy weed, so much crappy biomass, right? Not even weed, that they don't want to just dump it. So they're like, well, we'll strip it of everything and just use that as the base product for like everything that's being sold at the dispensaries. So can we not? Um, I know there was like a big cannabis conference recently in Toronto, maybe, and there's a lot of weed innovation, but like, can we not? Can we like go back to basics? Like, I don't want weed innovation. I want balanced flower that was grown outside, ideally, by someone whose mom taught them how to grow it, maybe. Because it seems like it turns out the best that way. Um, it's also not just distillate. I just wanted to clarify because someone asked about this. Um, so like those THC diamonds. So THCA is like popcorn kernels, right? Like, and then THC is like the popped popcorn. So you when you spray this high THCA, however, whatever carrier method they use, onto the plants, you're you're upping the potential for THC. Um, I don't want diamonds in my weed. I just want the whole plant. Um, but yeah, and we'll just end on this. But I feel like, the cannabis that I give my dog, probably Sam Bear, is a 20-to-1 ratio. Okay? The cannabis that pediatricians prescribe for children on the autism spectrum often starts at a 20-to-1 ratio. 20 parts CBD to 1 part THC, right? Sometimes I say it backwards. Um, why don't we like start using the cannabis that we give our most vulnerable and see how we feel once that starts? Um, Vet CBD, by the way, is my absolute favorite brand. I interviewed Dr. Shu, the founder, I think twice on the podcast, but they do have a hemp-derived version, and instead of being a 20-to-1 ratio, it comes out to closer to like a 37-to-1 ratio. But people write in and say it helps. So I'm going to put a link to that just because the 4th of July is coming up and fireworks. And if you use the code SAVVY10, you'll save a little bit. So yeah, that's like the end of my rant about ultra processed cannabis. And yeah, I mean, like, can you imagine walking into a dispensary and seeing like a wall of like landrace strains and like heirloom genetics? That would be great. I mean, they're out there, people are growing them. I think it's definitely part of like the counter culture. I just want people to be clear, like with weed being like totally normal at this point, like everyone's grandma is using a weed gummy. Let's just be sure we're using the cannabis plant and not some adulterated form of it. And I think that would explain a lot. And it explains a lot about why these like weird cases of people greening out and stuff are happening. Greening out didn't used to happen. That wasn't a thing. Um, all these like adverse reactions of cannabis that people are having that seem like so dramatic, maybe it's because it's been ultra processed. So stop blaming the plant, blame the process. And it's greed. It's always greed. These people want to make more money. They don't want to lose their crops. They want to grow as much as possible. It's always greed. So take it into your own hands because it's the only option. Next week, I will be back to answer your questions. I've been collecting some of them. Feel free to leave other questions in the comments. And then if you see a question that you want answered, just upvote it. And whatever gets the most upvotes, I'll answer. Um, and yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So I will see you next week and avoid distillate. Okay, bye guys.